The wind howled across the frozen surface of VRX-9, a lonely moon far from the warmth of any sun. The sky above was dark, filled with stars that never moved. Snow and ash covered the land. Long ago there had been fire here, cities, lights, and flying creatures with scales that shone like gems. But now only ice remained. She walked through it, slow, tired, and full of sorrow. Her name was Kalira, and she was one of the last of her kind. Her strong wings no longer carried her. Her legs shook with each step, but she kept going. Behind her, tied to a rough sled, were 3 small metal capsules. Each one held a life. Her babies. Kalira was a draconid, a race once feared and respected across the stars. Long ago, they had helped protect the galaxy. But when war came, lies turned friends into enemies. The dragons were hunted, blamed, and wiped out. Kalira's family, her friends, her whole world, gone. She had saved only 3 of her hatchlings. She froze them just before their enemies came. She had planned to come back and wake them when it was safe. But there was no safe place now. Only ruins. Kalira's breath steamed in the cold air. The sled scraped over the icy ground. Her sharp claws left deep marks in the snow. She had traveled for days without rest, without food. Her body was strong, but it could not fight time. She was old, tired, and alone. But she was a mother, and mothers do not stop. In the distance, lights flickered, small, weak, but real. An abandoned human mining outpost sat half buried in the ice. It had been silent for years, but Kalira had studied human machines. She knew how to send a message, a cry for help. Maybe, just maybe, a human would hear it. She dragged the sled to the outpost door and collapsed. Her large body blocked the wind as she reached for the control panel. Her claws were too big, but she used the tip of one to press the ancient keys. The screen flickered. Static filled the air. Then, a soft blue light. Kalira opened her mouth and spoke in a voice rough with age and pain. Not in her own language, but in the old tongue, the language the first human space travelers had used. To any who hear me. I am Kalira of the Draconid Guardians. I seek help. My children are frozen, near death. I cannot save them. Please, help us. The message repeated every 5 minutes. Kalira curled her body around the capsules. Her silver-blue scales had dulled and her breath was slow, but she stayed awake. She had to. If anyone came, she needed to be there. Hours passed. Maybe a day. Maybe more. Time no longer mattered. Just as her eyes began to close, she heard something. A soft hum. Then a low voice. Well, I didn't expect to find this today. Kalira opened her eyes. A figure stood at the edge of the light. Tall, covered in a thick winter suit, with a helmet shining in the dim glow. A human. She raised her head slightly, unsure what he would do. Would he fear her? Attack her? The man stepped forward slowly, hands up. Easy now, I got your message. His voice was calm. Not scared, just curious. He knelt beside one of the capsules, wiping off the frost with a gloved hand. Cryo units. Old model, but still running. Too stable. 1 week. I can work with this. Kalira tried to speak, but coughed instead. Her body trembled. The human noticed and quickly opened, a pack pulling out a small energy cell and a warming blanket. You need rest. Let me help. He didn't ask questions, he didn't threaten her, he didn't run. For the first time in years, Kalira felt something warm in her heart. Not heat from a fire, not strength from power, hope. She closed her eyes, trusting the stranger. The human placed the energy cell into the first capsule. Lights blinked. The hum grew stronger. He looked up at the sleeping dragon mother. My name's Elias Vance, he said softly, and I'm not letting them die. Elias Vance didn't believe in luck. Not anymore. He had once worked in top labs on Earth, young, proud, full of ideas. People had called him a genius in exobiology, the science of alien life. But when he challenged a powerful company's wrong research, they pushed him out. No job, no future, no support. So he left Earth and disappeared into the stars. Now he lived, alone on a cold, forgotten moon called Virex 9, fixing broken machines and studying old alien fossils buried under the ice. Life was quiet, lonely, but safe. Until today. When the old signal came through his comlink, Elias almost ignored it. The language was so old, barely anyone used it anymore. But curiosity made him listen. The voice was deep, slow, tired, but full of something else. Something he hadn't heard in a long time. Desperation. He followed the signal on his snowcrawler, unsure what he would find. A trap? A glitch? A broken robot? He found a dragon. She was huge, lying in the snow like a fallen mountain. Her silver-blue scales were chipped and dull. Her breathing was slow, and near her 3 cryocapsules hummed weakly. 2 were still glowing. 1 had a red light. Elias didn't panic. He'd seen cryo failure before, but never with dragonkind. He had only read about draconids in ancient records, mighty winged beings who once helped protect the galaxy. Everyone believed they were extinct. Some thought they never existed, yet here she was, and she needed him. Elias pulled out tools from his crawler and set to work. He connected a power line from his crawler's battery to the dying capsule. It buzzed back to life slowly. Inside the frosted glass, a small shape, no bigger than a human baby, moved. The dragon mother opened her eyes. Elias turned to her and gave a small nod. "They're holding on." Her voice came weak and soft. "Can they live? If we keep the power steady?" "Yes, but they'll need warmth and time." She nodded slowly. "You are not afraid?" Elias gave a tired smile. "Afraid? Sure, but curiosity wins." He didn't know why, but he wasn't scared of her. Maybe it was the way she watched her children with such care. Maybe it was because she hadn't hurt him when she could have. She had trusted him, and that meant something. He looked at the cryopods. Old tech, alien design, but similar enough to what he knew. "These units are failing. I can transfer them to my lab. Safer there." Kalira blinked. "You would take my young?" "Only if you come with them," Elias said. "You don't have to trust me, but you do need help." She studied him. Elias met her gaze. Not as a hero, not as a warrior, just as a man who had nothing left to lose but still chose to help. Finally, Kalira lowered her head. "I trust you, Elias Vance." With care, they loaded the capsules onto his crawler. Elias wrapped Kalira's wings in warming cloths. She was too weak to fly, so he gently helped her into the back of the crawler, where the heater was strongest. As they traveled across the frozen plains, Elias spoke to her. "Why here? Why this moon?" Kalira's voice was like wind over stone. "Once, long ago, my kind watched over this world. We kept peace here. But war came. Lies turned friends into enemies. We were hunted. And the children? They were born during the final war. I froze them before the end, hoping someday someone would find us." Elias drove in silence for a moment. The snow fell softly outside. "It's a strange thing," he said. "I came here to escape people, and now I'm helping save the future of a species." Kalira gave a soft sound. A laugh, maybe. Or something close. "You are very human." Elias smiled. "That's what they always told me." They reached the lab after 2 hours. It was a low building half buried in ice, filled with machines and wires. Inside it was warm, quiet, and filled with Elias's notes and tools. He carried the capsules into a special room with power banks and temperature controls. As he adjusted the systems, Kalira watched, her tired eyes wide with hope. The red light on the weakest capsule turned yellow. The heartbeat signal inside grew stronger. Elias stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow. "They'll live," he said softly. "But we'll need to work fast. These systems won't hold forever." Kalira looked at him for a long time. "You are not like the others," she said. "Maybe I just had a better teacher," Elias replied. She tilted her head. "Who taught you?" He looked out the window, where stars blinked cold in the sky. Life did. Inside the cold lab on Virex 9, something rare was happening. Life was returning. Elias Vance moved quickly between the machines, checking wires, adjusting power levels, and cleaning frost off the glass capsules. The room was warm now, filled, with a soft hum and blinking lights. He had patched the broken systems with old parts and a little creativity. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. In the center of the room, 3 cryocapsules stood upright. Inside them, tiny dragon shapes floated in blue mist. Their small wings were curled, their scales faintly glowing under the frozen glass. 2 of them looked stable. Their heartbeat signals were strong. But the third, the smallest, was still struggling. Its light flickered, and the signal inside was weak. Elias clenched his jaw. He had seen this before. A failing cryochamber meant time was running out. He turned to Kalira, who rested near the wall. Her large body curved around a warm heating coil he had set up. She looked tired, her wings wrapped tightly around her, but her eyes were locked on the smallest capsule. She spoke softly. "That one. Her name is Serene. She was born the weakest, but she had the strongest heart." Elias nodded. "Then we fight for her." Kalira's eyes met his. "You are not afraid to try the impossible." Elias gave a small smile. Impossible is just a word people use when they quit too soon. He opened the control panel for Serene's capsule. The freezing unit inside was damaged. It had protected her for a long time, but now it was breaking down. She needed to come out. Soon. But waking a creature too early, especially a young draconid, was dangerous. Her body might not be ready. Elias took a deep breath and looked through his old notes. Years ago, he had studied cryo-emergency protocols. He had never used them on dragons, but the basic ideas were the same. Heat, oxygen, a gentle wake-up. He pulled out a small medical pod, a human device used to help injured children. It was just big enough for Serene. "Kalira," he said, "I'll need your help, your warmth, your voice. She'll respond to you better than machines." Kalira stood slowly and moved closer. Her eyes were wet, though no tears fell. "I am ready." Elias opened the capsule. A cold mist poured out as the glass lifted. The tiny dragon inside shivered, her silver scales almost pale white. Her wings trembled. Her chest barely moved. Elias gently lifted her out with gloved hands and placed her into the human medical pod. Warm light filled the chamber. He adjusted the oxygen level and turned on the gentle pulse rhythm, like a soft heartbeat. Kalira leaned close and spoke in her old tongue, a song, soft and deep, full of love. Serene stirred, her claws twitched, her eyes fluttered. Elias watched, heart pounding. He had seen life start before, plants growing, animals waking, but this was different. This was hope being born. Slowly, the little dragon opened her eyes, bright silver like her mother's. She looked around, confused but breathing. Kalira let out a soft sound, a mix of relief and joy. "She sees me," she whispered. "She knows me." Elias sat down on the floor, exhausted, but he smiled. "She's strong," he said. "Just like you said." The medical pod beeped gently. Serene was stable now, but she would need care, food, warmth, time to grow. The other 2 capsules stayed sealed, still in deep sleep. Elias didn't want to wake them too soon. One life saved was already a miracle. The others would follow when ready. Kalira looked at Elias, her voice quiet. You saved her. Elias shook his head. We saved her. Together. Outside the lab, snow still fell over the ice. The world hadn't changed. It was still cold, still quiet. But inside something was different. Where there had been silence, now there was breathing. Where there had been fear, now there was light. And where there had been death, now there was life. Kalira lay beside her child, her wing wrapped gently around the pod. Elias watched them for a while, then stood and began checking the systems again. There was still much to do. More repairs, more planning. The danger wasn't over. But for the first time in years, Elias didn't feel alone. He looked at the small dragon and the great mother beside her. They had come to him in desperation. They had trusted him when they had no reason to. And because of that, something beautiful had begun. He spoke softly to himself. Let the galaxy think dragons are gone. Let them believe humans have nothing left to offer. He looked up at the stars through the frosted window. They don't know what we can do. Together. The days passed slowly on Vierex 9, but inside Elias's lab a quiet miracle was unfolding. Serene, the smallest of the 3 dragonlings, was growing stronger. Her body warmed with each hour, her breath came steady, and her silver eyes followed the lights and shapes around her. She often looked at her mother and at Elias with deep curiosity. She could not speak yet, but she chirped softly, a musical sound that made even the cold walls of the lab feel warmer. Kalira rarely left her side. The great dragon mother had changed since arriving. Her strength was slowly returning. Her scales had a faint shine again. Though she still carried sorrow, she also carried hope. Elias worked non-stop. He improved the power lines, strengthened the life support system, and added shields to keep out the worst of the moon's ice storms. Every small fix was done with care. Not because anyone asked him to, but because it mattered. These lives mattered. Each evening, Elias sat beside Serene's pod, reading from an old datapad. He told her simple Earth stories, tales of animals, stars, and the sea. Serene listened, eyes wide, head tilted like a curious child. One evening, as a storm raged outside, Elias leaned back in his chair and spoke to Kalira. Why me? He asked. You sent that signal into space, anyone could have answered. Why did you choose to trust a human? Kalira's voice was low but clear. In your history, humans are called many things. Brave, foolish, dangerous. But long ago, when my kind still lived among the stars, we saw something else in you. What's that? Elias asked. Kalira turned her eyes to Serene. You try, even when there is no reason to. You protect, even when it costs you. When all others flee, humans stay. Elias was quiet for a moment, then said, Not all of us. Kalira nodded. But enough of you. They sat in silence after that, each lost in thought. Then suddenly, a sharp beep broke the stillness. The cryopods holding the other 2 dragonlings began to blink. Green lights. Active lights. Elias rushed to the console. They're waking, he said. Not fully, but their bodies are responding. Kalira moved to the pods. Her breathing quickened. Her wings trembled. Their names? Elias asked. Kalira's eyes softened. The first is Viel, my boldest. The second is Nira, my wisest. Elias checked the levels. They weren't in danger, but the systems were aging fast. He had done his best, but the truth was hard. The equipment wasn't made to last forever. They're stable now, he said, but if anything fails, they'll be at risk. Kalira looked at him. Can they be moved? Elias thought for a moment. I can build stronger pods, but I'll need time, and tools I don't have here. Kalira's voice dropped. There is a hidden danger, isn't there? Elias didn't answer right away. He looked out the small window where the storm still blew across the ice fields. Yes, he said finally. I've picked up quiet signals. Not from the storm, not natural. Something is listening. Kalira's claws tapped the floor. The ones who hunted us? Elias nodded. Maybe. Or maybe scavengers. Either way, they'll want what we have. And they won't care who gets hurt. Kalira stood tall, her eyes fierce. Then we must be ready. Elias smiled, though it was tired. I never thought I'd be planning a defense with a dragon. You never thought a dragon would trust a human, she replied. He walked to the storage room and opened a crate filled with metal parts and tools. Let's make sure your children stay safe. And so they worked. Elias built stronger shields around the lab and connected new sensors. Kalira used her claws to shape heavy materials and her fire breath, still weak but useful, to melt and fuse metal. They worked together without words, side by side. Serene watched it all, her eyes bright. She even tried to flap her tiny wings, though she could barely lift herself. When she chirped with joy, Elias laughed. Careful there, little one. You'll be flying before I finish fixing the roof. Kalira lowered her head beside her daughter. She is learning fast. She's her mother's child, Elias said. By the end of the week, the lab looked different, stronger, warmer, more alive. But Elias knew this peace would not last. The galaxy was wide and word would spread. Someone, somewhere would hear about the dragons, and they would come. Still, for now, in this small corner of a forgotten moon, something rare was happening. A new bond, a new future, a new spark of life. The ice storm had passed, but something else now filled the air. Tension. Elias stood outside the lab looking up at the sky. A dark shape was moving across the stars. Not natural, not friendly. It was a stealth ship, small, fast, and deadly, and it was not broadcasting any ID signal. They found us, Elias said quietly. Inside the lab, Kalira rose to her feet. Her wings spread slightly, though she was still not strong enough to fly. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. Who are they? Elias turned to her. The signal code matches a group known as the Council Guard. Special Forces. Secret missions. Most people don't even believe they exist. Kalira narrowed her gaze. I believe it. The Council had once ruled parts of the galaxy, including the planets where dragons had lived. Long ago, they had betrayed Kalira's kind, turning allies into enemies with lies and fear. And now they were back. They must have picked up our energy spikes, Elias said. Maybe the baby dragon's life signs triggered something. Maybe they were always watching. Kalira moved beside her children's pods. They want to finish what they started. Elias nodded. Yes. And they won't ask questions. He walked back into the lab, moving fast. He opened a locked case under the floor and pulled out 2 energy weapons and a small remote device. I didn't come here to fight, he said, but I always prepare. Kalira looked at the tools. What can we do? Elias pointed to the shield controls. I can delay them. The shield will hold for a few minutes, but not more. After that, they'll come inside. Kalira looked at Serene and the 2 still sleeping dragonlings. Her voice was firm. Then we make sure they don't take them. Elias placed the remote beside the cryopods. This is a backup plan. If we lose, this will trigger a signal blast that sends everything to deep space, data, DNA, everything. They'll never get it. Kalira stared at him. And you? Elias shrugged. Not part of the backup plan. She leaned closer, her voice soft. You would die for them? He looked at her serious. They're innocent. You came here in hope. If I don't protect that. What kind of human am I? Kalira was silent for a moment. Then she did something unexpected. She lowered her head, and with a gentle sound, touched her forehead to Elias's shoulder. You are a rare human. Elias Vance. He smiled faintly. You're a rare dragon. Suddenly a loud alarm rang. The outer shield had been breached. They're here, Elias said. Outside, the stealth ship landed. From its doors stepped 4 armored figures, all in black suits, with glowing red visors. They didn't speak. They simply moved forward like machines. Elias activated the lab's internal defenses. Metal barriers dropped, auto turrets powered up. Energy fields lit the room. "Let's buy time," he said. The council guard attacked fast. Their weapons were advanced, cutting through the shield like it was paper. Sparks flew, ice cracked, the ground shook. Elias fired back, aiming carefully. He didn't want to kill, only slow them. But they didn't care. One of the guards shot a turret, another tried to blast the cryopods. Kalira roared. Even weak, her voice made the walls tremble. She leapt forward and sprayed a short burst of fire, enough to push the attackers back. Serene chirped loudly from her pod, scared. The other pods flickered but stayed stable. Elias hit the emergency lockdown. They're not getting through. But one of the guards tossed a pulse bomb. It exploded near the lab door, breaking the inner barrier. Smoke filled the air. The lead guard stepped inside. His voice was cold and without emotion. "Surrender the creatures." Elias stood in front of the pods, weapon ready. "No. You cannot win. I don't need to win. I just need to stand." The guard raised his blaster. Before he could fire, a deep sound echoed through the lab, a heartbeat, loud, powerful. The cryopods glowed bright. The second dragonling, Viel, woke. With a screech that shook the room, he broke through the glass, his wings spread wide. Though young, his body was strong. His tail swept across the room, knocking the guard back. The others paused. Kalira growled. "My children are rising." Elias looked at the monitor. "Naira's waking too." The guards hesitated. Their plan was falling apart. Elias stepped forward. "Leave, or you'll see what happens when humans and dragons stand together." The guards looked at each other. Their leader gave a signal. "Retreat." As quickly as they came, they left. The stealth ship rose into the sky and vanished. Silence filled the lab. Vale stood beside his mother. Serene chirped happily, and Naira slowly opened her eyes. Elias sat down, breathing hard. Kalira spoke softly. "You gave us time. You gave us life." Elias looked at the children. "They gave me a reason." Outside, the stars still watched. The council would come again. But the lab on Virex 9 now held something stronger than fear. A family, and the fire of a future that would not be taken. The lab on Virex 9 was no longer quiet. 3 young dragons now moved inside its walls. Serene, small and curious, chased lights on the floor. Viel, bold and strong, stretched his wings proudly. Naira, calm and watchful, studied everything with deep, intelligent eyes. Kalira sat near the center of the room, her wings curled around her children. She looked tired, but peaceful. For the first time in many years, she felt like a true mother, again. Elias Vance stood by his workbench, repairing the damaged wall from the recent attack. His hands were steady, but his thoughts were racing. The council guard had found them. They had attacked without warning and left when they realized the dragons were waking. That meant one thing. They were afraid. Not just of the dragons, but of what they represented. "They came to erase history," Elias said aloud. Kalira looked at him. "They fear truth." He nodded. "Then let's give them something to really fear. Proof." From an old storage case, Elias pulled out a dusty silver box. Inside were data chips, some over 100 years old. They held old records, reports, and broadcasts. Many were broken, forgotten, or thought to be lost forever. Elias had collected them during his early days as a scientist. He never knew why. Maybe now he did. He inserted the first chip into his terminal. A blurry image appeared on the screen. It showed a meeting of the Galactic Council, leaders from many species sitting in a large hall, and in the center stood a tall draconid, her wings folded, her voice calm. Kalira stepped closer. "That is My sister. The recording played. We offer our wings in peace, not war. Do not believe the lies of those who profit from fear. The message was clear, but the response in the video was not peace. The council members shouted. Lights flashed. The image ended. Elias looked at Kalira. They erased this, didn't they? Yes, she said quietly. They feared that people would listen. He loaded the second chip. This one showed scenes from the war, dragon cities burning, soldiers fleeing, families crying. But also, it showed humans helping dragons, building shelters, hiding young ones. Not all humans had turned against them. Some had stood with them, just like Elias. Elias turned on the lab's hollow transmitter. It was weak, but strong enough to reach nearby systems. He linked the best clips from the recordings into a message. I'll send this out, he said. Let the galaxy see what was hidden. Kalira nodded. Truth flies faster than fear. Just then, Nira approached Elias. She was quiet, but her eyes were sharp. She looked at the data screen, then at Elias. She let out a soft sound, almost like a question. She understands what you're doing, Kalira said. She always listened more than she spoke. Elias knelt beside Nira. We're telling the truth, not just about your kind, but about ours too. Nira gently touched the screen with her claw. She's ready, Kalira said. They all are. Elias sent the signal. It wasn't loud or powerful. It wouldn't reach across the galaxy. But it would reach someone. And one voice could lead to more. The truth was out. Later that evening, as the stars glowed outside the dome, Elias sat near the young dragons. Vael was practicing small bursts of fire. Serene was curled up, softly glowing. Nira lay beside her mother. Kalira looked at Elias with quiet respect. You have done what few dared, she said. You brought back what was forgotten. Elias smiled. I just told the truth. No, Kalira said. You believed in it. That is greater. Suddenly the transmitter beeped. A reply. Elias opened the message. It was from a small outer station on the edge of human space. We received your broadcast. Is it real? Are they really alive? We thought they were all gone. Elias answered simply. They live, and they are not alone. Kalira's voice was steady. They will come. Elias nodded. Some with questions, some with fear, but some with hope. Outside, the wind had slowed. The sky was clear. 3 young dragons slept beside their mother. And a human who once felt forgotten now held the future in his hands. The quiet moon of Virex 9 was no longer forgotten. The lab, once cold and dark, now hummed with life. The 3 young dragons grew stronger each day, their wings stretching wide, their eyes bright with wonder. The air was filled with hope, and even the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Kalira watched her children as they practiced flying, inside the wide dome Elias had built. The space was small, but the dragons made it their own, soaring with clumsy grace. She smiled softly. After so many years of loss and pain, this moment felt like a new beginning. Elias stood nearby, fixing a sensor that had flickered during the last storm. He glanced at the dragons, then at Kalira. They're growing fast. Kalira nodded. Faster than I imagined. The strength of youth is a powerful thing. Elias wiped sweat from his brow. And the strength of trust is even stronger. Their peaceful days, however, were not destined to last forever. One evening, a signal arrived, urgent and clear. It came from a distant human fleet, responding to Elias's broadcast. They carried diplomats, scientists, and explorers. They came not as conquerors, but as seekers of truth. Kalira watched as the fleet's ships landed near the lab. Humans emerged, their faces full of wonder and respect. They approached carefully, knowing this was more than just an ancient myth. Come to life, Elias greeted them with quiet pride. This is what we saved. The diplomats looked at the dragons, then at Kalyra. One spoke. "We have heard the truth. The council lied. You were never enemies. We wish to learn, to help, and to heal." Kalyra lowered her head. "Trust must be earned." Elias added, "And it will take time." As the days passed, the new visitors helped strengthen the lab and improve life for the dragons. They brought new technology and knowledge, but also respect and patience. Viel, the boldest dragonling, began flying outside the dome. His powerful wings cut through the cold air. Serene followed, playful and curious. Nira watched closely, learning from every movement. The human fleet sent messages across the galaxy, telling the true story of the dragons. Slowly, other species listened. Some sent aid, some sent questions, but all sent hope. Kalyra stood beside Elias one evening, looking out at the stars. "Do you think they will accept us?" she asked. Elias smiled softly. "They already have. It just took a few brave souls to show them the way." Kalyra looked at her children, then back at Elias. "You were that brave soul." He shook his head. "No, you were. You trusted me." Suddenly, a bright light flashed in the sky. A distant ship entered orbit around Vierex 9, but this time it did not bring enemies. A voice spoke through the comm link. "We come in peace. We wish to join the alliance. The galaxy must be stronger together." Kalyra's heart lifted. The dragons spread their wings wide, their scales shining under the stars. Elias stood beside her, ready for what came next. Together, they had sparked a new fire, a fire of hope, trust, and a future where humans and dragons could fly as one. And across the stars, a new chapter was just beginning.